Okay, Stephanie, if you can hear me, I'm just going to do a quick audio test. This is audio number 1.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. And then this is audio number 2. Which one sounds better? Audio number 1. Audio number 2.
Yeah, they both work.
Okay. I'm pretty sure this one was the one that we thought sounded better during our run. And then this one I think sounded a little bit further away.
Yeah, the first one sounded a little bit better.
Okay. All right, perfect. Thank you.
No problem. I'll hop off.
Okay, well, just real quickly, you're not hearing a echo of your own voice, are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
No problem. Bye-bye.
You can, okay. I don't know how she's going to take attendance.
I'm taking it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Can you hear us again?
Yes. All right, let's see where the camera moves. Let's go. Cool. All right, good here. Hey everyone that's with me already. We're going to give folks maybe another 4 or 5 minutes to jump on, and then we'll get started.
Alex says he's very much impressed with Jason and Malik's what they know and how nice and helpful they've been. Do they send out links to these presentations?
Okay, guys, we're going to give folks maybe another 2 or 3 minutes here, and then we'll go ahead and kick things off. We're going to have a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. Until then, just because there's going to be a good amount of people on here, we just ask that folks go ahead and mute their lines until then, just to make sure we don't have any interference or anything like that. We're going to get started here right at 5 after, so about 2 to 3 more minutes here. For those of you just jumping on, thanks for joining us. We're going to start at 5 after here. We'll have a Q&A session at the end. Please go ahead and mute your lines until then. We just want to make sure that there's no interference. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get things started here. Thanks, everyone, for joining us here at the LPRC Innovation Lab. I'm going to be chatting today with you about decision science, so the kind of academic study of how people make choices, what factors go into their decision process, and finally things that we can do to sort of affect that decision process, which is really kind of what we're all interested in here. So a little bit of background about myself. Give me a quick second. I'm Mike. I'm a research scientist here at the Loss Prevention Research Council. My background is in consumer behavior, so we study quite a bit, how consumers make their decisions, and when you walk into a store, what sorts of things that are kind of present in mind seem to affect your purchasing behavior, and then also, what sorts of things that are kind of subconscious, so things that you don't really realize are going on seem to affect your purchasing behavior. We look quite a bit at, what seems to underlie that process. And before that, I worked at a lab that looked at kind of food consumption when it came to a consumer setting. So I'm going to have a couple examples here later that allude a little bit to that. I think it's a good place where, everybody eats food, and I think we've all kind of made decisions with food that we later think, why the heck did I eat that, or why did I do that, that we might later regret, which has some good parallels to, I think, a lot of impulsive behavior and a lot of behavior that we see with our offenders here in a loss prevention setting. So kind of the main points that I'm going to try to make today are that offenders are, a little bit more complex in the way they make their decisions than we may give them credit for. I think that's we kind of tend to fall into this school of thought with offenders that this typical offender comes to mind when we think of them maybe as being some of them are looking to score high when they come into the store. That's why they're there, to steal something, to get drugs. Which obviously kind of really changes the motivation game and changes our ability to affect their decision because that is just looming so large in their mind in that moment. We may think of them as having, maybe lower intelligence or having, lower motivation level, things like that, than the average person. And for a subset of offenders, this is definitely true. There's people that fit this description. I think, it's important for us to understand, and in the time I've been here with the LPRC, we've seen that, the people that come to our lab to do offender interviews with us, the people that we catch on camera doing things, is kind of a very wide array of people from all kind of walks of life, different socioeconomic statuses, different races, ages, genders. Some are very eloquent in the way that they speak to you. You'd feel very comfortable if you saw them in a college classroom. Other ones are more maybe the prototypical person that you may not expect in that setting. But what we find is that even for this person that is kind of the offender that we think of as someone that doesn't necessarily think their decisions through very clearly, doesn't necessarily put much thought into things, doesn't think much about consequences. Even for that person, I think, may not give them quite enough credit when it comes to the complexity of their decision. So in retrospect, their choice to do something may not seem very intelligent, but the process that they went through to reach that decision is actually a complex and intelligent process. And so that's something that I think is an opportunity for us to understand that process better. Because once we understand the process of how they're coming to this decision that they're making to do something like shoplift or perform a pharmacy robbery or a parking lot robbery, things like that, once we understand what is underlying that decision, we can start to understand their motives, and then we can start to break down what could be a possible deterrent to them. How can we stop this decision from occurring in the future? So one of the really cool theories of decision science is something called utility maximization theory. So it's this idea that when any human is presented with a choice, they essentially are trying to get the most out of that choice that they can. They're trying to maximize the utility of that situation. The way that they do that is by thinking about the goals that they have at that time and how this decision can help them to achieve some of those goals while putting other goals that they also have on hold. So, we tend to have competing goals in a lot of the decisions that we make in life, right? So, if you're going to a fast food restaurant, you may have a goal of being, healthy and of being physically fit. You also have this kind of immediate gratification goal and maybe a craving for a specific thing, and those goals compete in that moment. One of them comes out on top, and then later on you may feel that the decision you made was either correct or incorrect. So we seek to maximize utility with each decision that we make. This isn't something where we're pulling out a calculator and doing all sorts of arithmetic to figure out how we feel about each individual decision. It's not something that's quite that top of mind or quite that calculated, but it is a process that occurs and that goes on in people that we may not expect it to. Someone that may not even have an understanding of basic addition and subtraction is still able to do this kind of process because it's something that's very fundamental to our evolution, to making choices that have led to rewards that have kept us alive in the past. So this is something that's that we think that almost everybody does, and for our purposes that everyone does. So at the moment that we make each decision, a good way to think about it is during that split second you're making your decision, the choice that you make is the one that you've calculated to have the highest utility. So right that second you think that choice is the best choice. Otherwise you wouldn't have made it, right? So, a second later, you might realize that it's not the best choice. 5 seconds later, an hour later, a year later. But what happens is when we look back on the choices we've made in the past, our database of knowledge is quite a bit different than it was when we made our choice. So when we make a choice in the moment, we have a couple of different things that we weigh at the time. So our current knowledge of the situation. So in a case where there's an offender thinking about committing shoplifting, that would be thinking about their knowledge of what's there as a deterrent, their knowledge of the technology that's there to stop them, maybe the knowledge of, whether this store intends to prosecute or not, their knowledge of how much money they can get for whatever the product is, maybe on the black market, or maybe they're going to sell it to a friend, whatever. And so all this knowledge kind of plays into their decision. And again, that knowledge database is right in that moment. So it's something that later on they may realize wasn't a great idea because this product is worthless, or because there was this camera that I didn't realize was there that caught me doing the whole thing. But in that moment, the knowledge that they had is what led them to think that whatever decision they're going to make is going to maximize their utility. Current weighting of goals is also very important. So you have these competing goals going on. Sometimes one of them kind of bubbles to the top and takes precedence over other ones. I think that some goals are kind of more long-term in nature. So things like, overall health, physical fitness. With the case of loss prevention, maybe a goal of feeling like you're self-sufficient, feeling like you haven't had to lie or cheat to get where you are in life, feeling like you're a respectable member of society, those sorts of things. Those are a little bit loftier, more abstract, and maybe more long-term goals. And they're competing with these impulsive goals, perhaps of I need this money now to do this or to do that, or I need the thrill of taking this thing now. And so that's kind of the dynamic that we see, and that we have to kind of try to better understand so that we can affect that decision. The third thing that we look at is our beliefs on probabilities of outcomes. So there's again, it's not a terribly calculated thing in the sense that they sit down and really do the math on it, but you have a sense of what are the chances, if I'm thinking about stealing this item, what are the chances of me getting caught? What are the chances of me being able to sell this and get a decent amount of money for it? What are the chances of me being able to do this in the future? There's these outcome probabilities that we think of when we do anything, right? So if we feel that the chances of a negative outcome occurring are too high, and that the potential payoff for the positive outcome probability is too low, then we may choose not to go through with that particular action. So this is the kind of health example that's, again, I think is very relatable. So we have these kind of these competing goals here, these sets of goals. And hopefully most of the time, throughout a 24-hour day, hopefully we spend like 22 or 23 of those hours kind of looking at this screen looks, where our goals of physical fitness and overall health are looming large. We're able to kind of keep ourselves in check when it comes to, doing possibly things that we may regret in the future when it comes to impulsive foods, fast foods, that kind of thing. Sometimes, though, you have
Muted.
and something in the future, even if it's the exact same thing, the exact same reward, the exact same monetary amount, for example, it's not equal because people like to have things right now. So this idea has a lot of implications in behavioral economics. When you think about taking out a loan, this is something where you're willing to pay this kind of interest rate that may or may not be ridiculous based on what decade you got your loan in, because you're getting this sum of money now, and you won't have to pay it back until later. So you're borrowing $100 now, you'll have to pay back $200 later. That seems okay in the moment because you're getting this immediate reward. So temporal discounting also has a lot of implications in health. It has a lot of implications in any impulsive behavior, because when somebody commits an impulsive behavior, they eat a candy bar when they're not supposed to, they commit a theft, they commit a domestic battery, something like that, they're doing something that involves an extreme amount of temporal discounting. So they're saying, right in this moment, this is the thing I want to do, and I know that in the future there may be consequences, but I'm discounting the future. The future isn't certain, it isn't here right now, it's not right here in front of me, and therefore it's not something that is important as this goal or this thing I would like to do right now. So this is a concept that is very interesting, and I think that is a little bit kind of interesting, fresh territory. Kind of a new pioneering field that we can take a look at and really learn some cool things and start to think a little bit differently about how we can affect these decisions that somebody like a shoplifter is making. So you'll see in this scenario again that sometimes immediate gratification or one of those types of goals really looms large right in that moment. You make your decision, and then again your set of knowledge, your set of goal weightings, and your set of perceived probabilities of outcomes right in that moment led to you saying, all right, it's fine for me to eat this. Then later on, maybe your knowledge base changes, maybe your goal weighting changes, or maybe kind of your orientation changes, and you may think that you didn't make such a great decision. So this is a great example of temporal discounting. They did this really cool study where they essentially took these three scenarios. So getting a tattoo, going to the dentist, and joining a health club. And they asked people how similar they thought going to the dentist was to each of these other two concepts. And so you can see that there's a couple of things about going to the dentist that are a little bit similar to getting a tattoo, right? There's needles involved. There's somebody that's going to be poking through and causing you some pain. There's going to be some discomfort. It's something that you might dread in the hours leading right up to the appointment that you have because of that kind of visceral feeling of pain that you're going to be feeling. But then again, there's things about going to the dentist that are very similar to joining a health club. It's something that is kind of a good thing for you to do in the long run. You know that it's going to lead to positive health, good outcomes, things like that. And it's something that when you look back on it, might make you feel good that you went ahead and did it. And so it turns out when you ask people to kind of rate how similar going to the dentist is to each of these other two concepts, when you ask them is very important. And so temporal discounting really comes into play here. So if you ask someone when their dentist appointment is tomorrow, how similar going to the dentist is to each of these two concepts, they rate it as very similar to getting a tattoo. So it's something that's happening very immediately in the near future. All of these sort of concrete thoughts of the pain they're going to be feeling are very top of mind right in that moment. So they rate it as much more similar to this kind of concrete thought of pain that's similar to getting a tattoo. If you ask them when the appointment is next month, they rate going to the dentist as much more similar to joining a health club. And so, they aren't necessarily thinking about those kind of very concrete things like pain or things like, dread. They're thinking about more abstract thoughts and more long-term goals. So the thought of overall health, which is something that, isn't quite as tangible, and the feeling of, having a long-term goal of good health that they're working towards seems to be overriding whatever feeling of potential discomfort that they're feeling. So this is kind of interesting because this is a very different way of thinking about the exact same concept, and all we had to do was change the orientation of when we think about this happening. So you can imagine a scenario where, I'm saying hypothetically to someone, think about the dentist, and all I have to say in that scenario is think about it tomorrow or think about it next month. I just altered a couple of words, and it completely changes how they conceptualize that concept in their mind. So this is something that can have a lot of implications for us when it comes to, being able to kind of flip the switch on offenders with, signage, with some sort of communication to make them think more about the future. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. So this is kind of a little bit more of a scenario we're familiar with when it comes to shoplifting. So you have these goals that are a little bit more long-term in nature, things like feeling like you're an honorable person, a respectable person, like you're self-sufficient, and like you kind of earned things fair and square, that you didn't have to, cheat to make your way in life. You have these competing goals right there in that moment when you're thinking of shoplifting. You need the money. You need this thing to, you need the actual thing, or you need the money that you're going to get from selling this thing, or you need the drugs that you're going to get from the money from selling this thing. And there's also this kind of thrill of breaking the rules that may play into there as well. And so, most of the time, and for most of us, everything here on the left seems to loom a little bit larger. These long-term goals tend to kind of weigh a little bit heavier on us than the short-term kind of payoff that we may see from shoplifting or from doing other illegal behavior. Sometimes for some people, though, you see this kind of, again, this change in goal weighting. So the weight of this need for money just kind of outweighs everything else right in that moment. And based on the knowledge that they have in that moment, and based on these goal weightings, based on perceived probabilities of outcomes, both negative and positive, they go ahead and make this choice. And so we have to try to think of ways to stop that from occurring. So hindsight usually includes much more information. So, the concept of saying that, in the moment all decisions are good decisions sounds kind of weird, right? Because we've all made decisions that we, not so soon afterwards, not so late afterwards think, man, what were we thinking? This is really stupid of us. So it's important to remember that hindsight, kind of has a lot more knowledge. So you look back and you have knowledge of how outcomes actually turned out. You no longer have these probabilities of how outcomes may turn out. You have knowledge of whatever it is that maybe made their decision positive or negative. So if a camera caught you doing something, you now know about that camera. And so obviously in retrospect, it looks like it was a bad decision. But based on the knowledge set that you had at the time, you didn't know that the camera was there. So it's kind of a strange concept, but it's important to remember that, these people aren't just kind of boneheads. We all make decisions without really thinking about them, right? So, something where you're distracted with something else, and maybe you decide to turn left when you're not really paying attention on the road, and then you realize that you made a wrong turn. That's a little bit different because you're not attending with any of your cognitive resources to what's going on. But when people are attending to the decision that they're making, it's important to think of it as a calculated decision, and not just, it's not like they're thinking, I'm an idiot, I'm taking this. They may think they're an idiot right afterwards, but right in that moment, they feel like, all right, this is perfect, I'm going to get away with this, I'm getting what I need. They feel good about their decision right when they're doing it. So that's an important concept to keep in mind. So based on all of this, there's a couple of things that we can do. This is kind of the really kind of important slide here. I encourage folks to jot down some notes. A lot of what we do here at the LPRC is really kind of encompassed by this slide and the next couple of slides here. So there's a couple of different ways based on what we know about decision sets and how people try to make their decisions to gain the most positive utility possible. based on what we know there's a couple things we can do to affect their decision. The one thing is to change the information set. So, that's one of the three things that they look at here. The information set that an offender has includes, information on possible deterrence. So that's something that's obviously we've been doing for a long time, right, here at the LPRC. We need them to understand what it is that is available out there that can possibly stop them. So this is kind of in our C Get Fear model, this maps very well to our concept of C. We need them to know and be aware of what's out there that can possibly catch them. So information on deterrent sets is very important. And that's something that, again, we've been doing for a long time. I think, it's something that we need to continue to do. And we can look at, new ways to tweak it, new ways to kind of move forward with it. But it's fairly well established. It's something that we feel comfortable with. Next is kind of our concept of GET, right? So inform on possible negative outcomes. So they need to not only, understand that there's something there, they need to kind of have a sense of how it works in order to truly be afraid of it. And then the next kind of overall concept in the top three is changing perceived probability of outcomes. And this is kind of where fear comes into play. So changing their perceived sense of whether they're going to get caught or not. They have to feel like whatever deterrent we put in front of them is actually capable of stopping them or capable of collecting evidence on them that can be used against them or capable of beckoning someone over that's going to physically stop them. So increasing the perceived probability of a negative outcome is, again, something that's we've explored quite a bit. You see a lot of initiatives out there that try to, say things like we prosecute to the full extent of the law, or shoplifters will be prosecuted. This is kind of tapping into that sense of, bringing the probability of the negative outcome in mind. Next is kind of altering our current goal orientation. So this is something that's a little bit new. These last three concepts are things that aren't quite as well entrenched in the loss prevention research council and the industry, and we'd love to kind of continue to pursue them. They're kind of fresh frontiers for us, and we're really excited about them. So benefit denial has been going on, I think, at the LPRC for maybe 5 or 6 years, something like that. So this is something that we've been looking at for quite a bit, but this concept is very powerful. And so it's this idea that you can decrease the perceived positive outcome probability, right? So if I steal this, I'm not even sure if I'm going to be able to sell it or not. I'm not even sure if it's going to work as a product needs to work in order for it to be worth anything. Changing the dynamic there where not only are these potential negative outcomes looming large now, but also I'm not even sure if there's going to be a positive outcome here on the table. That is a fantastic deterrent, and it's something that's, that we're really excited about and we're doing a lot of research on. Altering current goal orientation. So this is something that kind of leads back to that temporal discounting concept I was talking about. So reducing temporal discounting is something that we're really just on the cusp of starting to look at. So there's a lot of implications here, as I said, for things like impulsive eating. So a couple other industries and a couple of other kind of academic fields have been taking a look at this, and we're currently kind of looking through all their research and seeing what lessons learned there are and what we're able to kind of take from it. But this is the idea of kind of making people, right in that moment, imagine if you're about to eat, your chocolate bar or whatever impulsive decision you're going to make. Right in that moment, you read something or someone says something that kind of snaps you back to thinking more about those long-term goals. Maybe the person next to you says something about, how they've lost 20 pounds recently or something, and, that kind of gets you thinking, oh, wait, there's these long-term goals that I have. I was kind of letting them sit on the back burner here, but now they're more top of mind, and this whole kind of temporal discounting thing might go away. They're obviously not going to think that, but the positive goals that we kind of want to bring to the forefront are looming a little bit larger now, and the decision, the goal weighting changes a little bit, and that may affect our decision. So that's something we're really excited about. Bringing the long-term competing goals to the forefront again, so the first place we've looked for this concept is signage, and so a sign, an anti-shoplifting sign that says something along the lines of really kind of appeals to people's sense of being a good person. So we've been working with Luxottica recently, and they're testing out a sign that has a little bit more lighthearted of a feeling to it that says "Steel hearts, not sunglasses." So this kind of appeals to people's sense of oh, these people are kind of joking with me. these are people that I'm taking this thing from, or I'm potentially stealing from. So, I have these goals of being a good person to other people, of not treating other people in a way that I don't want to be treated, and suddenly those long-term goals maybe kind of outweighing my short-term goal of stealing this item and of having the money or whatever it is that I was going to get from this item. So. That's kind of the concept here. This slide I'm going to share on the Knowledge Center here, and I'll hopefully be able to share the whole slide deck here on the Knowledge Center with everyone. For everyone that doesn't know yet, and also as a refresher for folks that do, our Knowledge Center has just launched here. This is a really cool space where, when we interview our offenders, we'll often take videos of that. When we do our research, we often write up a report, whether it's a couple of pages or 50 pages. And the Knowledge Center is kind of the database where you can now search for all of that. So we have our own kind of search engine in there. You just you log in, and it'll say right there LPRC Knowledge Center, and there'll be a nice big search tab, kind of like Google. You just type in any keywords that you want, and you get access to all this great information. So if you type in, you're interested in public view monitors, you type in PVM, you'll get a handful of results, 20, 30 results. That are all about public view monitors, and you'll be able to say, all right, I'm interested in reports today, or I'm interested in looking at offender videos of how they reacted to public view monitors, or how they feel about them, or what they think that we can do to change them. And you can go through and, in a very targeted way, do some great quick research on specific topics. Our new website also launched fairly recently, lpresearch.org. That's kind of the portal to get to all of these other links that we're really excited about as well. It's a great new interface. It has all the information that you need. It's a great way to kind of help explain the LPRC to maybe one of your peers or coworkers that doesn't know about us yet, or that you'd like to have a little bit more knowledge on us. So just send them to our website, and they'll get all the information that they need. We have our conference coming up in October, so that's going to be October 3rd through the 5th. Registration's open, and we'd love to get folks registered as soon as possible. For folks that have been to the conference before, the Rights Union here at the University of Florida, it's a great big room, but there's a kind of a limited amount of seating, so they gave us some stipulations on how many people we're allowed to have. And we came fairly close to that threshold last year, so we're encouraging folks to sign up as soon as possible. There is kind of limited seating there. Our next webinar is going to be, I believe, June 24th. That date may be subject to change, but we're fairly certain on it. Dr. Hayes is going to chat with us about the SARA model in depth, and that's going to be really neat, I think. Maybe most of us have heard of the SARA model, but this will kind of go through a little bit more depth, how the process works, how to best utilize it, how to get the most out of it, and then possibly a couple of case studies to let us get a sense of kind of in the real world how the SARA model gets applied. We have this concept of zones of influence that is going to be kind of the foundation of our impact conference. We have around 30 research studies that we've done this year that we're currently working on, and each of them fits into one of these zones. So for folks that can't read it, zone 1 is this idea of kind of being the asset point itself, and so things like a keeper box would be a zone 1 protection item. Zone 2 is a category area, so the shave section, something like that. If there's a PPM that looks at the shave section, that would be a zone 2 solution. Zone 3 is store entry and overall interior, so things like CCTV cameras, EAS pedestals is going to be zone 3. Zone 4 is our parking lot, so a lot of things go on in the parking lot that we may not necessarily be aware of, and so we really want to kind of try to amp up awareness and also amp up our ability to do some sort of action when we see that something's going on in the parking lot. Zone 5 is cyber and surrounding physical area, so again, there's a lot of internet chatter. A lot of people, when they are thinking of doing something, will post it to social media beforehand. We'll talk about doing it, and our ability to collect and be able to sift through that information to pull out the things that are actually valuable to us is really important. So we're going to be featuring this throughout the coming months, all the way up to our conference in October. We'll be doing it through the D&D Daily, LP Magazine. Those guys are really great helping us to kind of get the word out on these sorts of things. And we're really excited about it. I'm always happy to chat about it. You can reach out to me at mike@lpresearch.org, and I'm happy to talk about any of these links, any of these concepts, and also obviously the concept of the webinar today. So with that, I'll open up the floor for any questions that anyone has. Yeah, does anyone have any questions here? And you guys can feel free, again, to email me questions. I understand that, you might need a little bit of time to digest kind of what we're talking about, and I'll be able to kind of to respond on a more one-on-one basis, so we're happy to do that as well. Okay, guys. Well, that kind of completes the webinar here for today. Again, we have our next webinar coming up on the 24th. We hope that you'll all join us for that one as well. And we want to thank you all for being with us here today. It's always great to be able to chat about what we're up to and to really kind of spread the word on the different types of research that we're doing. That's going to be really what Impact's all about this year. We're going to be really showing off all the different research that we're doing, all the kind of different areas that it fits into, all the working groups and action teams that it fits into, and kind of try to give everyone a really good sense of all the cool stuff going on and how they can best utilize it and bring it back to their organization and use it to kind of affect the outcomes. Again, that's kind of what this webinar is all about, affecting the outcomes of the shoplifters. So thanks again, everyone, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their Friday and a great weekend. Mark? Sure, go ahead. Does someone have a question? Stop sharing the webcam. Still hears me.